Hello and welcome. I'm Ashley McPherson. Welcome to Behind the Curtain, your backstage pass, your sneak peek at what goes on off camera, off stage and off record. Tonight we are talking about a film, which means the use of the word curtain is purely metaphorical tonight. We're talking about a film called Fable of the Fairytales. It's coming soon and it promises to be a visual, colourful, almost hallucinatory experience like no film you've ever seen. And I'm thrilled to be here tonight with the film's director, /writer, /editor, /producer, Dana Stockton. Dana, that's a lot of slashes.
Yes, well, it keeps me busy, what can I say? So.
Certainly would. Is that the way you prefer to work? Doing all of those jobs all at once?
Not necessarily. Like, my main passion is directing, but I also like to have a control over my stories, because I'm full of lots of stories in my mind, and if I think of a great idea which I think will work as a film or a short film, I'll go for it. So, yeah. And
you like to have complete control over as many aspects as possible?
Well, the story, because the story is the main part. Like, if you don't have a good story, you're not going to have a good film. Even if you have great visuals, it's not going to stand up for an audience. So, getting that story right is the most important thing.
Would you ever direct somebody else's story?
Possibly. If there's a story which I believe in, I'd go for it. But yeah, at this stage of my career, only 21 at this stage, so just getting started.
Yeah, just getting started.
See where it leads me, really. So
you certainly make me feel a bit old. Now look, Fable of the Fairytales is about a man named Perseus Walker and two children named Thomas and Gabrielle, who go on a fairy tale-like adventure to save the people of a magical land. It sounds like a lot of fun, and from the footage that I've seen, you've actually created quite an amazing visual design. It's almost dreamlike. It's another world. Did you deliberately set out to create something so different, or did that just happen?
Well, I did. The sort of films I do, they're not every day. They're not the real life, and that's just because that's the way the way I envisage them. They sort of I use a lot of green screen in it, and that's mainly because that's my way of being able to do more than real life. Larger than life, yeah, if you will. So I decide to use a green screen for this one as well, to get that sort of so I can build my own environments. I can make it as large as I want, and so that's what I've done.
Sure. Can you explain to us, what's a green screen? How does it work?
Okay, so green screen is pretty much, you get the actors into a studio and they stand in front of a green screen.
A green screen.
So, which is pretty much, a green wall, and then get them to act out their scene, and then in post-production, you knock out the green and put them into wherever you want. In this case, they're going into another world.
Awesome. Is that much more extra work for you when you do a green screen
production? Much more,
yeah.
Yes. Well, look at it this way. For some shots that go for 6 seconds, it takes me 8 hours to do.
8 hours?
Yes.
And how long is this film?
This film is 22 minutes, so it's pretty lengthy.
How much of that is green screen? The maths in my head just scares me.
Yeah, the majority of it's green screen. There's a few scenes at the beginning, at the end, which are filmed on location, but the rest is green screen.
Do you prefer green screen over the location stuff?
I prefer green screen because it gives me control.
Sure.
I can do things how I want them. And that's the same with animation. I've done a few animations in the past, and that's why I decided to do it that way. I can make it as large as I want and as small as I want. And my films have a very theatrical feel, so that's perfect. I can, make it, just how I want. And on location, you sort of, you're bound by the environment you're in.
Less limitation with the green screen.
Yeah.
And you've certainly worn a lot of hats for this one, including that hat, which is very nice, by the way. So, in terms of creating another world, do you base yourself on any idols? Did I detect a hint of Burton-like inspiration there, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, there is Tim Burton. There's a lot of inspiration I get. Henry Selick, Baz Luhrmann.
Yeah, definitely.
There's lots of them, and it's not only other directors I get inspiration from. The idea of this, or the sort of the feel of this, came actually from Panic at the Disco, their latest album, which is nothing to do with the feel. It's just listening to it, and the rhythm of it and the feel sort of sparked the idea for this film.
Yeah, I wouldn't have picked them as an inspiration.
Certainly. No, it's one of those weird things. Everyone doesn't understand it, but
Sure.
Works in weird ways.
Were there any particular fairy tales that inspired this story?
Well, not necessarily. Like, I've known fairy tales for a while, but I never really got into Disney films until a few years ago. So I can't say I really grew up with them. I've watched them and a few things, but the thing I like about fairy tales is that they've got really high peaks and they've got really low peaks, and it's never really in the middle. So you've got the contradiction there between, you know, evil and good, light and dark. You know, it's really contrasted, and that's the thing that sort of drew me to do this, is that I could build a film which has that, you know, that roller coaster that you go on, with the highs and lows.
What is it about those childlike stories that translates so well to those Tim Burton-esque films? I mean, he did it himself with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Alice in Wonderland. And what is it about fairy tales? I mean, Red Riding Hood, for example, it's about a wolf that kills old ladies and puts their clothes on.
If you think about the actual fairy tales themselves, they're really gruesome. But I think it's a license to allow you to go over the top. You've got no restrictions. Say if you're doing a drama, you'd be set with a, you know, a set sort of scope which you can take it. But when you do a you know, a fairy tale, like this one is not based on any fairy tales. I actually get asked a lot if it's a mashup of fairy tales, and I said it's actually not that. It's a fairy tale in its own right, but it takes themes and concepts from actual fairy tales and puts it into the film. And yeah, so I think it's just that the license it gives you, and I'm actually have a background in theatre, so you could probably see that through my work, that it has, you know, it is, you know, that above, you know, most people's sort of range in terms of how they act and how they, you know, see themselves. And
well, one of the taglines for the film was it was full of theatrical nonsense.
Yes, that's right, theatrical nonsense, because in the film there's a lot of carry on, especially with the lead character, Perseus Walker, who is actually played by Chris Ferrin.
Yes, he's quite a find, isn't he?
He's brilliant. I actually knew him earlier through school and through a few other theatrical events, and as I was writing the script, I had no idea who was going to play who, and then I think I hit one line, and it sort of evoked a memory of Chris Ferrin, and I thought, he's the guy. So yeah, I got him to audition, and he did a great job. So
obviously, well, he does a great job in the film, based on the footage that I've seen.
Yeah.
What about the other cast? Where did you find them?
For this one, which was different from my past films, this one I auditioned everyone, bar a few extras and things like that. Mainly because I wanted to take the acting up to a higher level. You know, so people can. Pretty much I wanted it so that the kids are kids, the adults are adults. In my past films, for instance, in Unexpected Places, that was mainly a youth event, a youth film, I should say, because a lot of those I knew through various other, you know, films and theatre shows and things like that. And so this one I wanted it so that you know, it's more believable that the adults are adults and the kids are kids, as I was saying.
You thought you wanted to increase the talent pool? Yeah,
pretty much. So, and it's interesting work actually casting the kids, because I got over 50 applications for the girl in it, Gabrielle, which is the character. And I had to knuckle that down to just one person. And it's, you know, it's interesting when it comes to casting of kids, because you have to get it right, and you have to get someone who will be able to carry that role and also, you know, carry themselves on set. And so, yeah, I found Gabrielle, and also there's the person who plays Thomas. I actually found through a acting agency.
Sure.
Came in and auditioned, and the thing I liked about those two is that they've got independence, and that they don't need their parents holding their hand all the way through it.
That would have made a big difference.
Which was, yeah, it was much easier to work that way.
How old are they?
Well, they were, I think, they were 11 and 13.
Sure. Does working with actors that age pose its own unique challenges or joys?
Well, I think that if you treat kids like kids, they act like it. Mm-hmm. If you treat them like adults, they seem to, follow the rest of the adults. And so I don't really treat them any other way on set. Having said that, you always want to make sure the set's, safe. There's nothing that could go wrong. And they're kids, so they're running around, full of energy. So you always have to make sure, that all the as much as you can get the cords, taped down and all that sort of thing.
And are there rules regarding how long you're allowed to have them on set as well? I know that in Full House, the Olsen twins had to go on because they had to have a double twin so that they weren't working any one person for too long. Well,
the good thing about filming, the parents came along each time. So we had, a set days, 9 till 5. But the parents were there and they could take them out for lunch and sort of, look after them. So which means that's, I don't have to worry about, looking after them and playing the father for them. So
playing the babysitter. Now, I understand that you like to bring out the best in your actors through use of a bit of improv. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, I prefer to let to them explore their character a bit more, rather than me telling them what to do. So what I mean by that is that...
So rather than giving them words on a script that might not feel natural.
Yeah, so the script is what's setting my mind. That's how I wrote it. But I've got 12 plus characters in my head at one time. They've only got their one character, so they can explore that character, put their own personality into that character, and take it somewhere which I never thought of. And when it comes to improv, I like to give them freedom because they know how their character will react if that's something like that happened. And sometimes they have great ideas, so I prefer to use a script as a guideline, but not, the set, this is how it's going.
Were there any scenes that were born entirely out of improv?
There's scenes which the majority of it was improv. We sort of had the beginning and end, but the rest was, and it was made up, and especially when it comes to Chris Ferrin.
Yeah, I'm getting the impression it sounds like a Will Ferrell movie.
Yeah, well, Chris Ferrin has a mind of his own, and it's great because the thing I like about Chris and a few of the other characters the other actors is that they have they get into their character even before we've turned up on set. They know who their character is, and they're they're willing to ask questions, and they don't see their character as a character. They see their character as them for that period of time. Yeah,
which is fantastic. Now, be honest, how much work has gone into this?
Okay, well,
time-wise, we're thinking about conception of the idea.
Yeah, so the idea came in April. And for the majority of this year, it's been a full-time gig for me to get this film up and running, and it's we're getting there, closer. So it should be hopefully about a month, and it'll be there.
Great.
But so if you think about how many hours in that, it's I can't even count.
Do you do this full-time?
I was. At the moment, I'm working on a few other things on the side, paid work, and so it's sort of slowing things down. But I'm put as much time as I can. So
curse the need for money, eh?
Yeah.
What about the filming itself? How long did the shoot take with all the green screen and stuff?
Okay, so we were looking at probably about in the green screen on the studio. We were looking at about maybe 3 or 4 shoots, and that was full day or majority of the day. And then on location, we were looking at. There's different locations. So we had one which was filmed on a train, old-fashioned train, which that was just an hour or two because it was just one scene. And then we came into a old castle actually in Keilor, and we filmed there 2 times, and I think that was probably half day for both of those. So when it came to a location, because of the restrictions we had to move pretty quickly. But we had more time when it came to the green screen shots.
And post-production? time-wise?
Well, you can't even count.
When did you finish shooting? Let's just put that date out there, and we won't do the maths.
I'm not even sure when I finished shooting, because I don't think it was as clean cut as that, because I had to call them back for a few other things, and
sure.
We actually recorded the audio separately, and we're still doing that to this day. So what I mean by that is we'd film the scene, I'd edit a quick cut together, get the actors in one at a time, they'd watch the footage and re-say their lines whilst watching themselves, and
that sounds tricky.
It was very tricky, and those themselves probably took, for some of the actors, probably about half a day each. Others a couple, an hour or so. But it's a decent process to go through. And
there's less scope for improv when you do that as well, because it's got to be verbatim, and in sync.
Yeah, the way I look at it though is that it gives you a second chance if you want to say, to make the scene flow more. It's a second chance for them maybe to say it, higher pitch or a bit more scope in the way they say it. So it gives them a second chance. And it wasn't, we were originally wanting to do the audio on the day, but it turned out when we filmed at a few of the locations, we had echo and a few other problems like that, which we couldn't get past. So, I had to put that down and say, okay, we're going to record all the audio separately at the end. So
once again, another bit of post-production to do.
Yeah,
now,
a lot.
The music on the website alone is outstanding. AJ Cooper is his name. Was that entirely his baby, or did you collaborate
that
on
was his. He is actually from America, so I've never met the guy.
Okay.
And I found him on the internet. I explained what the film was about. I said, do you have some music that fits? And he shot across a few things, and it fitted perfectly. And I think the good thing about it is that he gave me probably about 12 tracks, so I could choose between the two. But having said that, my last film, In Unexpected Places, I had a bit more control over the music there, because that was an actual musical. So that meant that I had to be there when the actors were recording their vocals and all that sort of thing. So I had a bit more control over that. But this one, I left it up to someone else to do, because I can only really give a feel. But I think giving them control, they're probably going to produce something better than having me sort of tell them where to go. Yeah.
Did you have specific tunes and things in your head, or did you just kind of say to him, here's the footage, give me something that you think works?
Well, the interesting thing is I got the music before I recorded, I filmed it. And that was done on purpose. So for a few of the characters, I could say, look, here's the music for the scene, play it. They could get a feel. They can say, all right, I see where it's going. Because it's really hard for an actor, when you're in front of the green screen, I can tell them what's around there, but they pretty much don't know what it's going to look like in the end. True. I had concept art and a few other things. And I showed them that, but from there they have to imagine everything else. So giving them music sort of gives them a guideline. And I didn't use that for all the actors, but a few of the actors I played the music, and that sort of helped them along the path.
So they just went off one picture of a castle, for example, and you told them this is where the scene's going to be.
Yeah, so I had two main concept pictures which I used. The first one was of a Madame Thunder's palace. So Madame Thunder is the antagonist in this film. And she has this palace which it all, most of her stuff occurs in, most of her scenes. And they were in front of green screen. All they had was this picture of pretty much a wide shot of the palace to work with. So they did a really good job imagining what was around there. They had a few props and things which they used, but the majority of it was they had to use their imagination for it.
It was entirely out of their heads.
Yeah.
Now, there's a behind-the-scenes clip on Dana's website, www.danastockton.com, and I have to ask before we move on, is the most hilariously overacted voiceover that I have ever heard. Who is it?
That's Chris Farron.
It's Chris Farron. I thought it was Chris.
Yeah.
I had my money on Chris. You guys owe me $20. They thought it was Morgan Freeman. Okay, finally, the future. What are your plans with Fable of the Fairytales?
Well, I've got a few interesting ways of getting out there, and you'll have to stay tuned for those. But the plan is to have a premiere screening, which all the actors will bring their family, and anyone else who wants to come along can come to this screening. We'll play it, and from there, a few things planned will occur from there, and then hopefully we can get into a few film festivals and get it out there.
Are you planning on making a feature film one day? I mean, 22 minutes sounded long enough with all the post-production work, but what are your goals?
I think the thing you need to understand was this film, we had no budget, and the majority of it was from me. All it was I had an idea, and I wanted to make a film, and that's how it all started from the very first film I did. You think of an idea, you've got no money, it's just you and this idea, and from there you bring all these people together. This film had about 50 people involved, and you meet great people, you work with them, they take something from it. And through this experience, you've created something which no one in the world has ever seen before. And I think that's what keeps me, coming back for more.
Is this your crowning achievement so far, do you think?
I think that's a hard one because as a director, you always see your own flaws. And you always can do better. And I think the great thing about art in general, but for filming, is that you don't know where you're going. You have a guideline of where you're going. But at the end of the road, you don't know what's going to be there. And that's still, to this day, even though I'm getting close to there, I still don't know what the final outcome's going to be. And I think that, that's art in general. And I think if you did know what's going to happen, that'll just be like a 9-to-5 job. So, yeah.
Certainly is unpredictable.
Definitely.
And with a visual scope like Dana Stockton's, I'm sure the film will be as bright and beautiful as the trailer promises it will be. It's called Fable of the Fairytales. Head to www.danastockton.com for more information. Dana, thanks for joining us on Behind the Curtain.
Oh, thank you.
It's been lovely meeting you. And thank you for joining me as well. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. I will see you again next time on Behind the Curtain. Bye for now.